shopping malls. So, David, welcome. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm great. How are you?
Doing fantastic. So, this is our, I don't want to say what episode, it's our third episode. It's been an awesome ride, hasn't it been so far? Yeah.
Episode number 3. Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Awesome.
That
It's been
is
amazing.
awesome.
And
and,
as we continue to just learn and we move through this process, it's just going to get better.
That's right. We're going to introduce a segment here at the end. So I'm saying this out loud so David reminds me to share it. And so the name of this show is Surviving Business. But at the end, we're going to talk about a thriving business and a business that's out there that we know that is thriving through these difficult times. So, David, you usually do a fantastic job every episode in grounding us in regards to our love of the particular industry that we're talking about. And so we did that for video games, we did that last week for movie theaters, and now we're going to do that for shopping malls. And so, talk to us a little bit about the background of shopping malls from your perspective.
Okay. So we can think back to a time long ago where a lot of people, they did their shopping at just department stores. So it was like you would just go to a huge store like an Abraham and Strauss or Sears or TSS or I guess for some people that live in different parts of the country, they had different stores with all of these wild names where Ross and whatever else you would see when you travel across the country.
Those names are taking me back there. TSS, A&S.
Yeah,
Wow. That
yeah. So
Orbacks. Those
exactly.
gimbals.
So the idea of the mall, when I was very young, was kind of a new idea. So the biggest mall that we had when I was young was Roosevelt Field Mall. And for people that know Long Island now, they know Roosevelt Field Mall as a very huge mall. It's expansive. It's got every store that you can imagine in it. It's this side, you're on this side, you come in, you go up the escalator, huge food court, all this other stuff. When we grew up and we used to go to Roosevelt Field Mall, it was one strip that ran straight from one side to the other side. The premier store in it was like Woolworth. It still had Macy's, right? But Macy's, I guess, just wasn't quite as much of an attraction in a mall setting.
Wow.
And I believe it might have had, I know later on they got like Stearns. It had the J.C. Penney. I believe J.C. Penney was a part of like the original.
Was the other anchor on the other side of it? Yes.
Yeah. So it's like you went from one side to the other side, and we took the bus there all the time because moms didn't drive. So that was part of our Saturday excursion. Sometime my auntie would come and we would actually drive there. But like the highlight of the trip was like when you left and you were able to go to Burger King. That was at the end of the mall, right? There was one place to eat in the entire mall.
That's right.
So for us, the mall was great. And I remember us taking like some serious trips to get to the mall. So there was another mall called Green Acres Mall, which is closer to Queens, right? Not in Queens, it's in Long Island still, but closer to Queens. And, for us to get there by bus, that required for us to take the N40 to like the N4. And then like we got off on this huge major road that was called like Merrick Road. And then we had to walk across this huge road. It was like 3 lanes going in each direction. We get across there and then we got to walk across Sunrise Highway. And then we got to like walk like another half a mile past like the Toys R Us and all of these other things, right? Which everything ended up becoming a stop on the way home, right? We could go to Toys R Us on the way home. I get me some toys. Trip is amazing. But yeah, I can remember that day, right? So when we think about like the standalone businesses, those were still huge, right? And mom and pop shops, they were easily able to exist without having to worry about the competition of this mall. So we start moving further.
I was going to say this for those of us who've been listening to the Surviving Business show here, you're probably getting a theme from season 1, and it's really around a lot of retailers, right? And the challenges that retailers are that are dealing with these days. Specifically in the stories that you're sharing, David, the commerce that happened in those scenarios or when we went out there it wasn't just one store, right? So we might have been going to Sears, for example, at one of those malls, but we didn't just go to Sears. It was all of these other types of things. The food that was out there, it was like an event. It was like going to an amusement park, I think, in a way.
Definitely,
You were just
definitely.
going out and
I
checking
agree.
stuff, you know.
Yeah, it was definitely. And our trips to the city was different, right? Because if you went into Manhattan, finding a mall was impossible. Today in Manhattan, finding a mall can happen, but
Harold,
you'll still notice
some of those,
that
yeah,
the way it's built is not that many malls.
it's not the same now. It's not the same. And for those of you who follow this, I am in Atlanta, and Atlanta has its own set of malls. And the malls are as spread out as the city is spread out. And the biggest highlight one being the one downtown called Atlantic Square, and a one across the street called Phipps Plaza. And I thought it was interesting when we talked about this topic, is that these malls, like you described, were like the central places that everyone wanted to go to get stuff. If you thought about, I want to go get something, it was harder to think about some off the street store. Your first thought was like, okay, let's go to the mall
Yep.
to get those things. And
Yep.
now with the different ways that commerce happens, specifically in the pandemic, but even before the pandemic, they were struggling, I believe, to get people to come in there because people can just buy stuff in so many ways. They can buy it off of Amazon, or they can buy it in lots of other places. They started to have these little strip communities. So, for example, there's one here in Atlanta called Atlantic Station, which is not a mall, but it's like a strip of stores. I don't know how they're doing in the pandemic, but I will surmise to say it's not so fantastic. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And
that's,
then that's the next thing that I was
yeah. Go ahead.
that's the next thing. Sorry.
No, keep going. No,
No,
next thing.
that's the next thing that I was going to try and touch on
Yeah.
was kind of like, so it became common across all of America to have these little small strip malls, right? So you would get there'd be some real estate guy who said, you know what, we can drive traffic to your community and allow for business to transact a lot better in your community if if you allow for me to build this little strip mall, and it's going to allow for some small businesses to come in here. It's going to allow for some big businesses that you maybe want to have in your neighborhood to come in here. And when these businesses come in here, they're going to pay taxes, and everything's going to be green. They're going to provide jobs to people in the neighborhood, and it's going to be great. So what you end up having is all of these strip malls now that pop up all around the country, right? And these strip malls really do what they say they're supposed to do, right? If you get these little strip malls, they are providing jobs for the neighborhood. They are providing access to stores that they didn't have before. There's when you think about community development and for communities to become thriving on their own, you look at some of the basic things that they need, right? You need to have a bank, right? You need to have a supermarket, right? You need to have good postal office and post shipping, a pharmacy, and then a gas station, right? If you have those things, maybe I'm missing one or two things that you probably also could have, that would be great. But if you have those two things, if you have those things, you probably have a pretty nice neighborhood, right? Where you don't have to run out of the neighborhood every time that you need to do something.
Well, all of those
So,
businesses you just mentioned are like all episodes of Surviving Business. It's like every
yep,
single one that you just went through. Supermarket,
exactly.
yes, like every single one of them can be their own episode. That was pretty interesting. Yeah.
Exactly. So as we look at it, we say, how did we get from where all of these strip malls and then all of these huge malls? Well, the huge malls weren't huge yet, right? Because the regular malls, like um, a mall like even Atlantic Mall at some point had to think about how can we drive more people to come here, right? Roosevelt Field had to say, all right, we got this one little strip, but there are these strip malls. Why people coming to us anymore if there's a strip mall that they could go to, right? So Roosevelt Field said, we're going to build. They built like a second floor, right? And then they built out more, and then they built out more, and they kept on building out because they said, we have to become the destination that people can go to and they get everything that they need, right? We got to differentiate ourselves somehow. And that's how they decided to differentiate themselves. Get bigger, have more stores that give people that come more options, right? And that model lasted for a good amount of time. And even still, when the holidays come around, you go to the mall, it's still jam packed, right? But the thing is, it's when the holidays come, and it's how long do they really stay jam packed?
So thinking about the problem here, that that scenario you mentioned, those mega malls, I'll use the term mega malls, they are probably surviving because they say, hey, we just got to keep getting bigger. But I see this a lot throughout the whole country that the ones who aren't mega, who aren't big, they might have had just one anchor store, for example, as opposed to like three or four anchor stores. A lot of them have shut down. A lot of them have closed up. They just can't survive because of the way commerce is, where people can buy stuff all over the place. And at the same time, they just can't keep the volume of people coming to them. So there's just I won't go through the list, but even where I'm located, there's been at least four or five that I've seen that are just close up. Lenox Mall ain't gonna close up, but the other ones that surround that all of the stuff you just went through, like all of those jobs they created in the community, when those things close up, all them jobs go on too at the same time. All of those peripheral, that economic cluster effect you have. When you got the mall, you got to have the gas station. You got to have this whole little economic kind of thing going on at the same time. All of those people get impacted. And you made me think about a solution that we can start to, as we kind of move to the solution phase. And you think about a
Before,
mall. Go ahead. One more. Go ahead. Go
before
ahead.
we go before we go into solutions, I just want to bring up a little thing, right? So I have on my shirt. I don't know if you guys can see the bottom, but this is a Clark Atlanta University shirt, and that's my alma mater. So as we think about the mall, I would say in 1990 something, when I first went to Clark Atlanta University, coming there from out of state, New York, it was like, yo, where is the mall, right? So first mall that you find when you come down there from out of state is going to be West End Mall, which is a big strip mall, right?
I
You
remember,
walk over to West End Mall, it's a big strip mall.
I remember getting some good chicken wings out of that mall. That mall is
Yeah, yeah. That's probably the best thing you were going to get out of there, right? Other than being able to get a CD or a CD or a tape, because we actually did use tapes back then. Other than getting a CD or tape with a new music that was out, that mall didn't really serve that much of a purpose, except for some place to walk to, right? But then you had to find Lenox Mall, right? When we had to hop on MARTA and go several stops and, do a little transfer to get to Lenox Mall. And it was like, when you went to Lenox Mall, you're like, wow, this is great. You felt like you were at home all of a sudden. And you would always see celebrities walking around Lenox Mall. You see Alonzo Mourning and Dikembe Mutombo and, all of these guys that were on the basketball teams. And I never saw that in New York, to tell you the truth. I didn't see that many people just walking around.
you got to be strapped when I'm on there. You can't be walking around. You just got to be.
But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I kind of felt like, and this is one thing I knew, like for everyone that went to school in the AUC, the mall was like that extra gathering place outside of the AUC, where it's like you got to see the rest of the world and you were still like kind of protected. You weren't like worrying about, looking over your shoulder, looking over your back. The mall is actually a safe space, right?
Yeah,
At least that's how it generally is in America.
you're making me think about one of the challenges that malls are now facing as well. This prevalence of or this massive prevailing gun violence that's happening in all over. I can't remember the amount of mass shootings that have been in at malls, but it's been more than a few.
Yep.
There's been quite a few, and that doesn't help the reputation of those malls, to say the least. And it's horrible because you're going to the mall to have a good time, to go to the amusement park, and mass shootings happen. So if we did transition to solutions, that first one comes to mind. Is like you've got to make the place like super safe. you've got to figure out how do you make sure that every single person that goes there on Black Friday or whenever they go there, that they understand that this place they're going to have 100% comfort level, not just their comfort level, but a comfort level for their car. If they drive there, because some parts of the country is more prevalent car stealing than others. They just you just are, and so I've heard people that I know here in my own city say they're not going to the mall because they're afraid to go to the mall. Not because they think the mall is sucks, but they don't want to go there and they don't want to get their car. They don't want to get mugged at the mall, and they don't want to get their car broken into at the mall. Like I'm not particularly afraid because of where I came from, but some people I know that live here they're afraid of such things. So that's a thing they got to think about seriously.
The interesting thing that you're saying right there, Junior, is this, right? And at times I will call him Junior because he is my brother, and the family calls him Junior, and for at least my first 26 years of life.
Don't worry about it. There's a whole group of people that call me. Everybody that's listening to this show, every single one of you that's listening to Surviving Business, y'all and I use y'all, so I'm Southern now. Every single one of you can call me Junior if you wish. So.
If you wish to, he'll answer. He will definitely answer the Junior and won't feel any kind of way about it. Like, why are you calling me Junior? But anyway, so what I was gonna say is I remember like it was yesterday when we would go to the mall, like especially we're gonna go to Green Acres Mall and Daddy was allowing for Mommy to take the car, or you were going to Green Acres Mall and he knew, the first thing that would come out of his mouth was, why are you going to that mall? And my father has a heavy Caribbean accent, and I'm not going to replicate it on video because it might be too funny for me. He like, why are you going to that mall? You know they're going to break into your car. They're going to steal the car. Make sure you don't leave anything on the seats. Make sure you do this. Make sure you do that. It was like a 10-point check you had to do to make sure that you didn't get got when you went to the mall. So yeah, this is something that's been around for some time.
Yeah, that was way back when too, right? And that stuff has
when your car wasn't really that valuable.
Car, I probably paid $100 for my car at that point. But I tell you, those lessons, I don't think those lessons have gone away. They quite frankly haven't. People, my friends these days, they make fun of me because if they go into my car and they leave something, I like beef at them. They like, yo, don't be dropping stuff in my car. Don't be. My car is not a storage place. So don't. So I probably learned that from my pops. That's for sure.
Yeah. Trunk needs to be clean. Trunk is ready. Should be ready for you to be able to transport something.
Yeah.
For you to
ain't nothing in my car. My car is like it's in the showroom. There ain't nothing in there. There ain't no stuff in there. And I think I probably got traumatized in a good way by my pops on that one.
Yeah.
But you're right, though. You're right. Going to these malls, I have yet to ever have a personal fear of them, because of, I guess, all of the stuff you just went through. But I can see how people who don't go to them on a frequent or don't have the background that you and I just talked about, they'd be like, man, this is like a scary thing. There's a reason why people don't go to sports arenas, which is another episode of the Surviving Business podcast that we'll talk about at some point. Why they don't go there because they're afraid something's going to happen. Human beings, Americans specifically, we're afraid of stuff. And so it don't take much to get us afraid to go to a place. That's for sure.
And I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't frequent malls that often anymore. And that's a lot of things that we speak about will probably be the reasons why. But I will say the last 2 times that I went to Roosevelt Field, something happened. One time, something happened. They said a glass broke, but it sounded like gunshots to me. And everybody went running, and me and Kevin with it, and we were like, we got out of there, and we were like, okay. And he knew this young lady that was there that was working at one of like the little kiosk things, and she left her phone and she left her keys and all this other stuff. Like, who leaves their phone and their keys because they hear something? You grab that stuff and then you run. But
wow.
We grew up with more traumatic experience, so you kind of like you go like right into superhero mode, and you're like, okay, what do I gotta do? Okay, this is how I react. All right,
let's
move.
Keep all of that stuff you just mentioned close by. But yeah, that's traumatic for somebody, especially if you're working there, and it might be a thing where that might have been not the first or last time she had to deal with such a situation.
Yep.
Like that's hard. Like the first job for a lot of people was working at some store in the mall. And I wonder, like for me personally, like when my son's thinking about his first job years ago, I probably dissuaded him from working at the mall
Mm.
on some level. And that's tough because they're great places of commerce. Whoever came up with the mall 50, 60, 70 years ago, it was a great idea. It really
Wonderful idea.
was. Um, so first thing is security. Now they might need to hire some security more than just the guys they get. They get like the guys who just drive around in those little buggies, looking for stuff. They're more of a deterrence than actual security guards. Those people that are there, and then you sometimes see cops at the malls, and I think that the cops thinks that that's a good thing to dissuade crime, and it might be. But for me, as someone who's been pulled over by cops all my life, I don't like seeing cops. So,
No.
first time I see a cop when I go to a place and I think something's going on, versus thinking that they're there to protect me. I think that there's something going on.
And
So,
and to tell you the truth, most of the cops that are at the mall or when they do show a presence, the security, they really weren't about people trying to steal from the stores. They're there to protect the stores from getting robbed. They're not worrying about some dude that walked in talking about they're trying to shoot up the place. That's not like their number one call to duty. And rightfully so, because it doesn't happen every day, right? But I guess the idea is how do these malls make sure that they're prepared? And I would hope, I completely and totally hope that these guys have huge contingency plans, right? Huge plans around. Okay, someone decides they want to shoot it up. You got to do lockdown. Actually, I was at King's Plaza. This is gonna sound a little crazy because, like what I said, I don't go to the mall that often. But
but
the first time
the
I was at
examples
King's
you've given
Plaza,
us.
I was at King's Plaza, and that mall. If people know Brooklyn, if you've ever been to Brooklyn, apparently you've had to be in King's Plaza. And I've lived in Brooklyn for a whole lot of years, and I really haven't spent time in King's Plaza. But my wife's like, "Let's go to King's Plaza for something." We went to get my daughter's ears pierced, and we're in there, and lo and behold, gunshot goes off somewhere and the whole place goes in lockdown while I'm in some store looking at some sandals or something. So like we couldn't leave the store. They made everybody go inside the back of the store and people coming in. They're like, "What my mother? She's out there. She was on the chair. Like, so where were you?" I was on the chair with her, but then I left her. Like, so what do you want us to do? But yeah, so it's definitely something that happens. And so they have that little contingency plan that's there, but apparently the contingency plan that they have there isn't stopping people from shooting.
It's tough. I mean, this is a tough one because they've got to think about proactive monitoring without profiling. Like that's
Yep.
a wacky balance between those two things.
Very difficult.
They're gonna have to hire some firms who can track chatter and those kind of things because people use like social media as a way to coordinate when they're going to do something wrong these days, and so they're going to have to do that kind of stuff. But security has got to be at one of the top of the list things to get people to go back to the malls or to go back in mass. I say all this to say that once we're past pandemic, people are going to be going to lots of places, but they may not go to the mall first if they still got these concerns. And we are just talking about two cities. And can you imagine all across the country and all across the world? Like I was watching a video recently of these people in Japan. I think they were out in Tokyo, and it was the middle of the night, and they had all of these stores that were still open in the middle of the night, and people were walking, and not a human being was concerned about anything. It had to be like midnight. They were just walking down the street at midnight, looking at, and some of the stores were still open, and there were still clerks in the stores. I was like, what? No, that can't happen in the U.S. And this is a bigger thing, probably than just the malls themselves. It's probably a whole conversation about gun violence and these kind of things, and the disparity and the inequality amongst different groups in the United States. But still, we've got to have people to have that comfort level. Job one is that you've got to think about ways of getting some data to analyze threats at the mall. You just can't just have people waiting for something to happen. You're going to
Yeah,
have to start to be proactive about that.
yeah. And then the little security footage and little security cams that they have. It. I would love to see exactly how those things are laid out, and I would think that because mall owners, it's not like the mall, right? The mall is just owned by this one person that's there, right? So every every mall is owned by either like a
Simon,
different company
like
or a
Simon
different
is
person.
Simon is the biggest one, I think.
Yeah, Simon is huge,
Yeah.
right? But it's what are they really doing? So I think that that needs to be a huge focus for them. But I think that there's some other things that are really a problem for them, right? If we think of their biggest threat, it's not that people are afraid of getting shot. I would say the biggest threat is that when people go to Amazon or they go to Macy's.com or they go to when it's the internet, right? It's the fact that I can buy what I want. It's similar to the GameStop thing, right? Where I was like, who needs to go to a GameStop anymore if you can buy your stuff online, right? If you can
Well,
download your game without having to go.
for a lot of the
Um,
bigger companies, I think it's become more of showrooms, right? You think
yep,
about these big brands; these things aren't like, hey, we're gonna make a ton of money by having a store in a mall. I think they just need a showpiece to direct people to, or when people happen to go by and have that impulse decision on buying stuff. I think a lot of the bigger brands have decided that, and so that's created problem number two or three. I don't know how many we've shared so far, but a lot of malls, especially those high end malls, are just high end brands.
yep,
They're not small businesses. Like if me and you created a new small business and we wanted to sell our food, there's no way we can get in a mall. I went recently to Roosevelt Field last time I was in New York, and I was so thrilled that there was a business in there, and I wish I remembered the name, that sold like nerd stuff that I like cool T-shirts and comic books and pop things and all that. I can't remember who that was, but it wasn't like a small comic book shop owner guy who did it. It was some
hmm
corporation that said, "Let's put a store in there because we know there's a bunch of Marvel movies that's out there, so let's
yep.
do that inside of
Let's
there."
target them for that.
Yeah, yeah.
And so yeah, I look at that and I say, how do malls cater to the people that like what I said, I don't go to the mall that often, right? And I can't just think about me, right? I gotta think about my wife or, these people that love to go shopping, right? How do they make sure that when they go shopping, they start thinking about the mall as their number one place to go, right? Versus I can just order it, right? And one of the solutions that came to my mind, and this might be something that would be a decent task for them to execute. But I was thinking, if I'm a mall and I have all of these stores that are in the mall, what if I was able to provide a service to people that said, yo, you know what? You can go on my mall site and you can shop everything that's available in the mall right here. Come down and pick it up.
Hmm. I wonder if Simon has an app like that. I know they must have an app because
Not
I
like
know
that,
I
no.
went there because you can get free Wi-Fi, which is a great thing at those malls.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when you go in, I think it directs you to an app to do that. But I don't know if the app has all of the stores in there, like a map, and then
Yeah,
connect
it has.
right to their app. I don't know if that occurs in there.
Yeah, I think they generally will have a map, right? So the stores, they'll generally have a map of the mall. They'll have information, contact information, stuff like that. But generally, they won't allow for you to actually transact business. They won't allow for you to say like, okay, you know what? I gotta go to Macy's, and then I need to go to. I keep on plugging Macy's, right? But we are not sponsored by Macy's, not yet.
Macy's is going to be a future episode with them continually closing their stores, so they're going to be a future episode themselves. So,
Exactly, right? We don't have any stock in Federated. No. All right. So but like let's say for instance I go to Macy's, I need to go to KB store, and I need to go to the KB toy store, right? Does
Yeah,
that still exist? I don't
I
know.
don't
But
know. I think they went bankrupt a few years ago. I think they did
yeah,
go bankrupt. Yeah.
yeah, they may go bankrupt. But that doesn't mean they're not in business, right? But let's say I had to go to Macy's, I need to go to the Polo store, I need to go to I don't know, Bloomingdale's or something, and I had to go to, some obscure shoe store that's in the mall, the Foot Locker, right? Could I make my order and come and just pick it up, right? Without me having to run across the mall and go to like all of these different places. How could they say, like, all right, what we're gonna do, we're gonna compose your order, we're gonna put it together, and guess what? You show up at the mall, you come to the specific spot of the mall that's like the pickup section, and we have it all sitting there ready for you. That would be a service not just to the end client, that could be a service for every store that is inside of that mall.
I think that's
Because
great.
that would be a way for them to all increase their revenue and without having to worry about hiring extra people, right? So this would be streamlining the flow of business. They'd have to do it right.
Yeah,
You know.
I think that's great. If anyone's out there in the audience at any point where you see this video, if you have any ideas about malls and how you think malls can continue to weather the storm these days, feel free to put that in the comments and also put your business in the comments because in a future episode, we'd love to showcase one of you. So those are great, great ideas there. I think about something we said the other day with the movie theaters and about how there can be this focus on small businesses, right? Like I think this is part of what I said about small businesses having a tough time getting into the mall. So, and there's a lot of pop-up shops that occur, just business owners do all the time. Thinking about allocating a space inside of malls for pop-up shops for small businesses that would otherwise not be able to afford to get into a mall. And not just doing that, like, oh, I'm just going to pop up this week and pop up next week, but making it an event or making it part of what the mall does. Like this week, we're going to have this pop up shop. This week, we're going to have that pop up shop. And this is what we do as part of our brand as the mall. Because there's people who probably want to visit that shop or probably have a hard time finding that shop, or it might be in part of town that's difficult to get to. And just having it popped up in the mall can relay the community and making the mall going back to its community roots, like the stories we shared at the beginning, making it linked to that. So hey, it's going to be an event. Such and such. He just made a new, he just got a new line he's producing, and he's going to be at the mall at a pop up shop. Because the mall knows this for a fact that when you go to the mall, you ain't just going to buy what's at the one shop. You're going to get something to eat. You're going to do all the stuff we talked about earlier. A lot of stuff's going to happen. And so I think that links to what we talked about last week.
Yeah, so I love that idea. And one of the things that's really powerful about that idea is that it allows for the community to really exist, right, within that mall boundary. Because what makes Brooklyn different than Miami is just the people that live in Brooklyn, right? And the people that live in Miami, and the people that live in Arkansas, and the people that live in Kentucky, right? And all of the people that live in these different places, they all like provide different things that we won't see in other parts of the country. So if I go to visit Kentucky, I don't want to go to the mall to see the same stuff that I see when I go to the mall in Long Island or Westchester or New Jersey or Atlanta, because they're all becoming homogenous, right? I want an experience, right? I want to go and see something different. And if I was able to say, like, I knew that when I went to that mall, I was going to get to see something that was really Kentucky, and I wasn't going to have to go all around and like find out what are like the major attractions of Kentucky and blah blah. Or maybe I'll find that out just by going to the mall. I go to the mall and I'm like, oh, this thing right here is kind of cool, and I'm able to talk to this guy that has this little pop-up shop that does something that's specific to Kentucky, and he's able to tell me about the amazing Kentucky breweries and the amazing this and the amazing that happens out there. Now I know about the land. I know about Kentucky, right? And just from going to the mall, it's the place for me to visit now. I want to go to the mall everywhere I go all of a sudden. Whenever you go to a new place and you're a tourist, you're looking to go to the mall versus, you know, looking inside some booklet to try and figure out where the places to go. So I think that, integrating small businesses, what we see happening, or what I've seen happen a lot in Brooklyn, is like they don't even create malls anymore, right? They create these amazing eateries. So it's like a mall of just restaurants, and they've got the Timeout, the Timeout Mall that's like down by the water. You haven't been there yet. It's amazing. They got like all these Michelin rated restaurants there, and it's just like you just walk around, you just pick. Oh, yo, I'm gonna go and eat here. I'm gonna have a drink there. I'm gonna hang out over here. You go out, and there's space on the outside where you're gonna look at the nice view. They have another one of them all. Well, they got like they must have created like 4 or 5 of those in Brooklyn now, right? And it's kind of like it's an amazing idea because people love to go to restaurants, right? And they love to have drinks, and they love to like congregate, and they love options.
Yeah.
But when we look at the regular mall, so like Roosevelt Field, or these malls could think about doing something that's similar. But if they do something that's similar like that, they kind of lose some of their regular route, right? And they kind of don't have that same commerce that's there. If they could integrate those local businesses, if they can do things like where instead of people having to like go to some flea market in the middle of nowhere, or having to wait until a specific day of the year where there's a celebration for me to then go and sell my candles and sell all of the stuff that I'm creating at home that I'm selling on Etsy and I'm selling on Amazon, and Amazon is raping me and not giving me what I'm supposed to get, and Etsy is charging me more fees than what I really need to be people are buying something for me for $25, and I'm seeing $15 out of it, right? And it's like, okay, how do I make sure that if you're able to say like you're going to provide this space that's going to be this community space that's going to give an essence to who you are, I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's great to share that. You just gave me an idea as you were talking, and I was saying to myself, wow, there's this kid, for example, called Action Kid that goes around New York and now goes around different parts of the country just filming where he's walking. That's what he's doing. And I'm saying to myself, malls are becoming like a secret where they weren't before. They need to have content. Every single mall should have a channel about what's going on in that mall this week. Going back to the pop-up shop idea, but even if they don't have pop-up shops, like what's going on in this mall this week? This is the stores that are in this mall. We're having sales in this mall. We're going to have this. That way it links back to the people's technology, right? People will pull up a YouTube pretty quickly and say, oh, what's going on with the mall? This is what happened this week. This is what happened last week. That way they're not like becoming the secret that they're becoming, where people are like, what? Where's the mall? You ever hear that these days? Like, oh yeah, where's the mall at? How close is the mall? The mall is around the corner? Where's the mall? Like, how far is the mall? People start to justify whether they shouldn't go or not to the mall. And so they can create content with simple tools these days where they can just vlog up and down the mall and just say, this is what's going on in the mall this week. This is what has happened. There's always cars in the middle of the mall from some dealer somewhere. Connecting the dots on that and making people go, oh, the content's right there. I get excited. I want to go check that mall out right now. Because right now, the mall is like an afterthought to people. It's almost like well, I guess we got to go to the mall. As opposed to in the past where it was the first thing you would think about. I think that they need to connect the dots with that technology these days. That to me is a solution they should explore. And the other one to explore, and I'll give it to you real quick, is that technology is moving fast. Between 2021 and 2023, there's going to be a transformation in car ownership in the United States. And so you go to the mall that's here. Tesla's super smart because they've got the superchargers at this mall that's here in Atlanta. So when people go in, they're like, well, it's going to take 2 hours or 3 hours for me to shop. That's fantastic. I get to charge my car. People are going to have a lot of charged cars that are electric these days. And so how do you do that? So, for example, Tesla's got their thing set up, but it's like pulling teeth for me, a person who has a hybrid car, to find out where the other. I had to do research to find out where the other car charging things are, and it's in the back, around the corner, in the cut, in order to find out where to charge my car is. They need to make those experiences anywhere where a human being spends hours should be a place where somebody charges their car. We didn't mention this on movie theaters last week. I don't believe when we were talking about that, but that's another way to draw people who are going to be buying those cars in droves over these next 5 years or so to come to those things, and that's a way to get people to come to the shop. Because to me, if I go there and say you got a limited range EV car, you're going to do this math in your head, like how far is it? Well, how much does my car does on miles, and how much is going to get back, etc. You got to know that when you go to the mall, you're going to charge. You can charge your car so you can get more energy to get back to your house. I mean, it's probably not an issue for like cars that got like 300 miles and so, but even so, you'll be thinking to yourself, well, if I go there and I get a little charge, then maybe I can go see my friend. Like back in the days, you go to the mall, then you go somewhere else, you go to this kind of thing. Those are a couple of solutions I think you got to think about with these malls. They got to find ways to make sure that they're linking technology today to what people are doing.
Yeah, and it's not something that that some retailers haven't thought about in a smaller sense, right? Because you look at Target, and I noticed that a lot of the Targets, they have these charge stations for your phone.
Yeah.
Right, so you go and put your phone in, you leave it, and that's gonna make me stay in Target longer. If my phone is low on charge and I need to get it charged, and I need to find a half an hour to an hour worth of stuff to find in Target, right? Same thing in the mall. If you have these charging stations, people are going to be there. Now, the challenge that they face is just how many charging stations, how do the charging stations work, how do they charge, blah, blah, blah. But that's what you do, you figure out the logistics. Right?
I think this is linking to our new segment. And for those of you who see the final video, you'll see like this big splash. It'll say thriving business. You'll see this big thing that pops up there. And I think it links to this section or this segment of this, of our weekly show that we want to talk about. And so all of that stuff that we just talked about happening at a mall needs one kind of thing in order to ensure safety beyond the stuff we talked about with security. They need sanitation. They need sanitizing of what they're doing. So there's been this real big growth over this last year or so in businesses all across the United States of sanitation business. I don't mean sanitation like going to sanitation. I mean like sanitizing locations and spraying them down and getting them ready for, to making sure that they don't have germs and that kind of things or COVID flying around. That is a thriving business. So if you're somebody that is looking for a thriving business, you like to do that kind of work, you need to get down with finding ways to sanitize locations, because the mall is going to need sanitizing a lot in order for people to go back to those malls. People are, even when post-pandemic, they still going to be thinking in their head, should I wear a mask? What kind of mask? Where's the place? Do they clean it down? Is there sanitizing booths all around? How does that all work? Is it still social distance? People don't think about all that stuff. But if you got a business like that that's helping those locations, those anchor stores or those small locations figure out how to make sure that their place is clean, you got a business there, a real business.
Yeah. And not to always be going back to things that I've experienced in my life, but one of the things that I experienced a long time ago, I think I was still in college, and one of my best friends, he used to work with this guy that he knew, and they went around cleaning the carpets for restaurants at night. So I got to go with him a couple of nights. I made a little bit of money, 40 bucks or whatever for cleaning like a restaurant's carpet for me, but for him, he had all of these contracts. So almost every night of the week, he had a place to go and clean their carpets at night. Now, that was a business that led that man into retirement, and he was able to walk away and buy a house in, Miami and just chill, right? That was way before there was this type of concern. It was way before restaurants couldn't even open their doors in New York, right? Way before, 25% occupancy. We moved to 35% occupancy. How do we make sure that 35. We're still clean enough at the end of the day?
I would say that before, to your point about before the pandemic, I was a person that was always somewhat of a germaphobe. And I remember I travel a lot. I go get on planes a lot before the pandemic happened. And I remember traveling with my family one time, and my family were laughing at me because I would not touch anything at the airport. I was a person that goes, so they got the escalators and all that. The only way I would I would either touch my elbow or don't touch the escalator at all. The trains that you would go in to get inside of that, the thing that you hold, the poles that are inside of the trains, I would either put my elbow or find another way to brace myself on the train. I just wouldn't touch nothing. I ain't touching nothing. And
Yeah.
so for someone like me, that's not going to change. That's not going to change. People who can make sanitizer in their house and selling sanitizer, you are going to get paid. People are going
Yeah.
to want to get sanitizers all the time from you. They're going to want to spray it. They're going to want to put it on their holster like how they would put a gun on in the Western days. They're going to want to be able to spray it all the time. It's going to work because everyone's
Yes.
going to be a germaphobe like me because I ain't touching nothing. Even more
Yep.
than
So
now.
sanitizers, disinfectants, but in a greater sense, just the cleaning business itself,
Oh yeah.
right? Just being able to say like, I'm going to provide cleaning, right? One of the people that were my boy Banner that was in our last show mentioned, the air filtration, right? Well, we mentioned the air filtration, and then he kind of like expounded on it. But yeah, when we think about air filter systems and what's happening in that industry and how you have to make sure that the air is clean because these viruses can be airborne, right?
Oh, yeah.
um
Think about schools. You think about stadiums that people go in. Like if you want to go to a basketball game, that thing's got to be air clean to go into. You've got schools all over the place, and schools get stuff floating around a lot. You're gonna have to make sure that daggone thing is air clean. That's a big business.
I mean, you go to the park, with your kids, and you're gonna have your kids playing on these things that other kids are playing on. Like, how do I make sure that that's clean, right? I mean, it's one of those things where the fabric of the world has changed a little bit, and people are more aware of things that can get us sick, right? And because of that, I would say if you want to find a business that can be thriving and you wanted to open up your own business and start something that could really, really, really work for you, the cleaning business is there. I actually have a buddy that I used to work with maybe 15 years ago. He quit. He quit the job. We were working at JP Morgan. He quit. Um, to go and start his own cleaning business upstate New York. And I think he was pretty successful with it. So it worked back then. It's one of those businesses that has always thrived because someone always has to clean up the dirt, right? But after this pandemic, we believe that it's just going to be much more of a need.
Yeah,
So
I've
who doesn't want?
read something recently that the amount of pandemics that we've had over the last, let's say, 10, 20 years are more than the previous 100 years put together. And so they're coming at a decent clip here. So even because viruses want to survive, they want to live, and so they will mutate themselves and have variants all over the place. I am under this opinion that this pandemic that we're dealing with today will get better, but it'll become similar to the flu, where periodically we're going to have to inoculate ourselves against this or anything else that happens. And that means
Yeah,
that businesses are going to need to keep clean. And all the things we talked about with malls today, that is like the overarching cloud of all of the things that we talked about. Because a lot of things we talked about is in the world where you don't have to deal with going out and getting sick, and getting close to people. You mentioned something earlier that malls are packed or were packed significantly. In order for them to get packed again, cleaning has got to be at the top of the list of stuff. They're just and they got to be transparent about it because their
yep.
liability is going to be super duper high if they don't deal with that right.
And it's one of those things where it's not only just being transparent. They have to make sure that people see it. So it's like when I go to the gym now, the Y in my neighborhood open, they have a cleaning lady that she's just like there, just waiting for you to get off of whatever you are using so that she can go and do a wipe down, right? So us, if you're going to that gym, you feel a whole lot more confident about how clean the gym is when they just got this lady that's just waiting for you to move so that she can clean it, right? And she's waiting for everybody to move, and that's all she does is just walk around, find stuff, and she's wiping it down. She's wiping it down.
That's a
That's kind of the world we live in.
that's a funny story because when I would travel a lot, I would try to go to the gym at the hotels, right? And most of them are just really, really nice. But before I would do any working out at the hotel, this is more insight to Winston. For those of you who are listening, you're getting more insight into my life and my peculiarities than you probably wanted to know. But if I went into the gym and I didn't see any sanitizing equipment or any sanitizing wipes, I wouldn't work out at the gym. I'll be like, yo, I just can't work out here. I'll be like, yo, because you know how people go in and they look to see if there's weights or a treadmill at the gym or something like that. They would go and look and see if those things were there. I never looked for that first. I looked to see if there were wipes inside of the gym to clean off the equipment that I'm dealing with.
That's crazy.
And if the answer was no, and it was just a bunch of towels, regardless of how cool the equipment was looking, etc., I would just have to chalk it up like, yo, I can't work out there. I have to go take a walk or something. I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm not going to be able to work out there. And that was way, way before any pandemic ever showed up.
So the funny thing is that we're brothers. We grew up in the same household, and you would think that we would be similar in that type of aspect, and we're completely the opposite. I feel like if I go to a gym and it's grungy and it's like all like messed up, I'm like, yo, I'm about to get the best workout in my life in this place. I'm about to get ripped. This is me getting home, right? I'm a guy who wants to get my hands dirty right now. So yeah, it's very funny. But after the pandemic, all of a sudden, I'm like, we could wait for a while before I get back to that, or I can work out there, but let me make sure that I got my gloves on, and I'm still got my mask on, and I'm kind of like, I'm prepared for this, right? If I'm not touching it, I'm good, But
I wonder, we didn't talk about, at some shopping malls, weren't there gyms? If I remember correctly, the one that you talked about earlier, wasn't there a gym next to the mall itself?
yeah, Roosevelt Field, they put a gym there. And what you'll find is that gyms find that being close to a shopping mall is a good location for them,
Yeah.
right? Because that's an easy way for them to drive business. If I'm going to the mall and I see this gym, oh, why don't I just join this gym because it's right next to the mall or it's in the mall, right? So it's great for the gym itself. Does the gym being in the mall actually drive people to the mall? The gym rat, yeah. The people that go to the gym regularly, that were going to go to the gym regularly, yes. But I would say if the person wasn't going to work out, they're still not going to work out because there's a gym
I think that's
in the
rare
mall.
because I'm trying to think about all of the gyms that I've encountered, especially where I'm located. I don't really remember seeing lots of gyms there. I think I'm sure that's not 100% unique, but I'm trying to go through, do a little quick kind of accounting in my head, and I don't remember lots of malls that have gyms next to them. But I think it is a good thing to think about, like really, like right in the complex
Mm-hmm.
of the mall. I think
Yeah, I know. Like when in the Atlanta area, I've seen a lot of gyms like especially like close to like a supermarket. Like they'll share like the same areas like a supermarket, or they share like the same complex as um, just like other mainstay places. But then you got places like Lifetime Fitness where one of my buddies works, and they just create like these massive gyms that just have to be by themselves. But they did create one close to Roosevelt Field Mall.
Yeah, I think
It's
malls got to think about things like that people congregate in because they were smart years ago, many many years ago, where they decided to put movie theaters in the malls. Right, that was super smart.
Mhm.
But what other places do people congregate? Like for example, drama theaters. Right, they're all over the place, especially in the city that I live in. They just like it's like you could create your own app about trying to find a drama theater in my city. um, but they never contemplate or never think about using that or using drama, as a stage. I don't think that I've
I
seen,
mean,
and I think
I'm
that's.
going to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Go ahead.
One of the things that I really kind of thought about, that I didn't get to mention was, malls take up a huge amount of real estate, and not that you want to get rid of the commerce that they already handle, but I was also thinking, like, how could they better utilize that real estate? Is them, you know, and maybe tied back into that whole idea that I was saying, where they can do like this whole delivery thing. But if they were to create like some type of storage component, right? Or if they were to be able to assist in like the delivery of packages, or that type of thing, right? So
I'll give you a quick
if
example. There's a mall that's about 6 miles from my house, and then when Sears closed down a number of years ago, went bankrupt, that place is now an Amazon kind of warehouse delivery center. So when I
Mhm.
order stuff on Amazon, I'm pretty surprised sometimes because when you look at it and it says this can be delivered tomorrow, you're like, where the
Yep.
heck is that stuff? Where is it? Where is that Amazon place? And they use that old Sears location at that mall to be the staging area for a lot of their stuff, and they deliver stuff out of that place. And as much as I miss Sears, I think that's a good use of that space, of that real estate. Instead of because they figure out there's so many people in a radius of that mall to do that with.
Yeah, I mean, so Amazon allows you to drop off your packages at Kohl's and like some other stores, right? And I dealt with that, and I said, man, this is taking a while. But I was on the line. I was like, this line is horrible for this line to be this long. But the idea that I was thinking was, what if they stole? Amazon's stolen a lot, right? What if they stole the Amazon locker idea? Right, to make that whole idea that I was saying before about the delivery of those multiple items, right? So I put in an order at Roosevelt Field Mall, and I'm ordering from 6 different stores. When my order is ready, I just go to this locker and pick it up. That's maybe I go to the mall and buy something else. But as far as them getting my money in their hands and utilizing, real estate efficiently, I think that right there could be a huge win. And maybe when I go to the mall, I still want to go to the mall. I want to eat something, right? So I'm still gonna go and do something in the food court. Maybe pick up something somewhere else. But to get those things that I just needed, I didn't have to go and walk around the mall, and it didn't have to be my exercise for the day,
Yeah,
and I didn't have to spend hours and hours doing it. Because we live in a time where people are short on time,
yeah, that's
and any minute that they feel they can save,
yeah.
they're excited.
There's so much space, right? You can really make a lot of that, a lot of lockers,
Yep.
at those malls. Going back to the security thing, you got to make sure that that's handled well, and that you validate people that are coming in. Maybe it's a QR code or something that
Yeah.
opens those lockers up, right? So it's a QR code delivered only to your phone that opens those lockers up, so that way you know the security is right.
It's this. They can literally. So I don't know if you guys have the Amazon lockers out where you're at, right?
We do.
But they can literally just rip that whole thing, right, straight from Amazon. You insert your credit card,
Yeah.
you insert your ID. You
Amazon
know,
can't patent a locker. It's a thing that's been around for 200 years or more.
Yeah, they
Yes.
can't patent that. And even if they did have a patent on it, a big deal. You just make it a little bit different.
Well, they
But
can't patent QR codes either, so they can't do that either.
no,
That stuff
no.
exists.
So it's like it's already there. The idea of how you do it is already there. You just have to execute it.
That's awesome. So this has been episode 3 of Surviving Business. It has been phenomenal. We love doing this. Like we shared at the beginning, we believe businesses are a force for the common good. We believe in capitalism and the way it helps other people's lives and helps them grow, and helps communities grow. And so that's one of the reasons why we decided to do this. And on top of that, it's a lot of fun to talk about these things and figure out how we can give solutions to businesses. Regardless of who you are, you don't have to be at a mall to think about the solutions that we offer today. If any one of these resonate with you, or ones that you think about and say, you know, that one is kind of how my business works, feel free to take it. It's yours. That's what we do at the Surviving Business Show. Next week, we'll have our first guest where we'll talk about their business. And we will do this every few episodes where we'll talk to someone and just walk them through ways that we can help them with their business. We are not going to get prepared. We're not going to have this roadmap where we're going to say, yeah, this is what you should ask us. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be just like this, where the knowledge that we've gained over these last several decades, be able to share with that person and with you who join us on this show. So, Surviving Business, David, any final parts for our audience?
I just want to say peace. And I'm out.
So this is David. David is our financial wizard and our economic guru. This is Winston. I am your human capital kind of person where I understand how that all works in the context of business. We are here for you, so feel free to reach out to us. Leave us a comment. Tell us your business so we can give you some feedback about what you are and how we can help you grow. And this is our episode around shopping malls. And we are out here at Surviving Business. Take care.